Hey guys, welcome back to Official Bravo Nation. This is our 15th episode, and today we are going to be recapping Love is Blind, Season 6, Episode 12. This is the wedding episode, the season finale right before the reunion, and it was an amazing episode of reality TV. I'm not going to go in chronological order. I'm going to do each couple, all three couples, and I'm going to start with Amy and Johnny. Then I'm going to do Chelsea and Jimmy, and then I'm going to do AD and Clay. But we start with Johnny and Amy arriving to the wedding venue. They're both really excited. Amy is with her best friend and her sisters. Johnny is with his brothers and his best man. And we see Amy, she's getting glammed, and Johnny is talking to his friend. And his friend was like, at first I thought this was crazy. But what I like about Johnny in this scene is that he can intelligently explain why he loves Amy. He says she's fun-loving, they have the same energy, they have the same sense of humor, she's dedicated to her career, she's dedicated to her family. He actually gives us reasons why he loves her, unlike Clay, who I will get to later. But Johnny is telling his friends that him and Amy never discussed looks when they were in the pods, unlike others, hashtag not Megan Fox. So they really 100% committed to the experiment of Love is Blind. So when they met for the first time, they actually had no clue how the other person looked. And it's really amazing because Johnny wasn't her type. She talked about how she always dated tall and dark. I don't know if that's Latinos or black men or whatever, but he wasn't her typical type. And it's amazing that he's the one who ended up being her soulmate. The man who, if she had met him at a bar or they had met on a dating app or something, she wouldn't have swiped right. She would have overlooked him. So this entire season was worth it so Amy and Johnny could meet each other. Despite all the failures of all the other relationships, this season, the sole purpose of this season was for Johnny and Amy to fall in love and to meet each other. And I think that's beautiful. But then Amy, she's in glam. Her parents walk in. Her father is so emotional. He's so sensitive. He's such an emotional man. And, of course, they see her getting glammed on her wedding day. So her parents are crying. She's crying. And then we meet Johnny's parents. It's his father, Jim, and his mother, Joy. And, they give him some really great advice. His father says that marriage is hard, but it's fun and it's worth it. And then later, Amy walks out in her wedding dress. She looks beautiful. Her father, he gets emotional again. And he said he was skeptical of the whole Love is Blind experiment. But, after seeing how happy she is and after seeing how Johnny looked at her, he was completely on board. And he gave them his full blessing. So Johnny and his mother walk up. They have a few words. People are coming into the area where they're going to get married. And him and his mother, Joy, they exchange words. She just encourages him. And then we see Amy coming with her brother. So now Amy, remember her autistic brother? His name is David Jr. He walked her down the aisle with her dad. So the three of them walked down the aisle together. It was really sweet, really touching. They just seem like such a loving family. And I wonder if they're so emotional like this, if that sensitivity is coming from having to have a special needs brother in the family. I wonder, or were they just naturally sensitive like this? But seeing Amy with her brother and her dad walking down the aisle, it was really sweet. So Johnny's standing there waiting for her. And when Amy finally gets up there to the platform, Johnny says, "Wow, of course you look gorgeous," which was like very different from what Clay says to AD. Remember that because we're going to get back to that. But they say their vows. They're really sweet. Amy says she loves his soul. They're holding hands and they just look so in love. And the minister asks, is love truly blind? So do you take Johnny? And Amy says, "I do" first. And then Johnny says, "I do." I knew everybody, whoever watches this show, we all knew Amy and Johnny would say "I do" and they would get married. It was just a matter of time. We all knew that this was going to happen. And, after the wedding, they celebrate. And, I just want to say again that this season was worth it for these two lovely people They're very sweet. Yes, they don't bring the drama like the other people do, but these couples are needed also because we need the balance. It's nice to see a real love story. And so I'm so happy for Amy and Johnny. I think they're both very nice people. And congratulations. And I hope you guys don't have children until you're ready and you get the whole birth control thing sorted out. Okay, now we're going to talk about Chelsea and Jimmy. Wow. Okay, so we start off where we left off in episode 11 with Chelsea and Jimmy. They're at the amusement park, Carowinds, and Jimmy asks her, where is she as far as saying yes at the altar? He tells her he loves her and that she's his person, and he wants to know where she is as far as saying yes at the altar. And Chelsea says she takes a beat, and which is the cliffhanger we had from last episode. But then she says yes. She says it's been hard, but they've weathered storms. They've had huge arguments and have, made their way back. And she feels that, yes, she's ready she's ready to say yes at the altar. But she does something that she always does. She says, yesterday I was having an off day, and so were you. She never takes sole accountability for anything. Every time there's a fight and then they have the makeup scene, she never says, you know what, you were right. She always makes sure to add that he was wrong also. She never takes sole accountability for anything. But she says that in that moment, she felt confident and that she feels sure about saying yes at the altar. Then Jimmy says that he loves her to death. Remember those words. I thought we stopped saying love to death. I know it was a saying. Everybody been saying that for years. But I don't want someone to love me to death. I don't like that phrase. I feel like we've evolved past that phrase. But Jimmy uses it a lot. And he tells her in this moment that he loves her to death. But he doesn't want to go to the altar. And he says he just can't. He just can't do it. And of course, Chelsea is devastated. And she says, so you're set on not getting married? And he says yes. And then she turns into Pennywise and says, then why did you propose to me? Why did you fucking let me pick out our songs for our wedding? Apparently, they had just picked out the songs they wanted played at their wedding reception. And they had a good day. And he was, she was thinking that everything was great and that they were going to get married. And that is a little shitty, But Jimmy, these two, Chelsea is so awful. She made me side with Jimmy because like I've said in my previous podcast, I don't believe Jimmy. I don't believe when he's telling her that he loves her and you're my person. I don't believe he ever liked her. I believe he picked her. He was undecided in the pods. But when she said she looked like Megan Fox, he picked her. And I'm standing by that. Not only does she look like Megan Fox, but she didn't have a child like Jessica. So when he saw her, he was instantly disappointed. And maybe he did somewhere along the line put in a little effort. But Chelsea is horrifying. She's so awful and insecure. And it made me sad. And she's so whiny. And she made me side with Jimmy because I didn't fuck with Jimmy. But now I'm team Jimmy. In this moment, as a woman, as a sensitive woman, I'm watching this and I don't have any empathy for her because she's just a nightmare. I'm like, thank God Jimmy freed himself from Pennywise because she is awful, 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 awful. She literally made me side with this man who I don't even trust or believe. I don't believe Jimmy ever was going to marry her. You can tell. You can just tell the body language. When they met, when they were in the DR, he just wasn't into her. He wasn't attracted to her like that. Even saying he wanted to break from sex. I mean, come on. He really wasn't into her. But like I said, Chelsea has been awful. She has been awful. She has been starting fights. And so she made us side with Jimmy, who we don't even like. Ugh. Then Jimmy says that he was very optimistic. He claims he was optimistic. But Chelsea keeps saying, but you're doing this, you're calling this off because of one argument. And she's not listening to him because he's telling her that, she betrayed his trust. When Jimmy told her off camera that he had sex with his friend, the girlfriends that we met two of his girlfriends. I think it was in episode 9 or 10 or 8, one of those episodes. Jimmy and that girl had a one-time thing. It didn't work out, and they became friends. And he told Chelsea this off camera. And she brought this up on camera. And he's saying that she betrayed his trust because actually he doesn't really care. He's a guy. He don't care about that. But she's putting out that other girl's business. So everybody who's watching this knows who that girl has sex with, and that is a violation. And it is a violation, and she doesn't give a fuck. She keeps saying, oh, what, you had a secret affair? Who cares? She doesn't care. She doesn't understand how that violated his trust, and how, like, she just doesn't get it. She really doesn't get it. And she keeps saying one argument. It hasn't been one argument. It's been several arguments and several things. And she is just, please, girl, please go to therapy. She needs therapy. I'm sure she's a nice lady, but she is really damaged. And I really think she could benefit a lot from therapy. Then Jimmy says, you broke my trust to the deepest degree. And she's like, your deepest, darkest secret is you were fucking your friend. And he's like, yeah, continue throwing it up in my face. Thank you for reminding me that I'm doing the right thing by ending this damn engagement. Then she's just speechless. And she comes up with, I was so hopeful for us. And then she gets up and she walks away. She goes down the stairs and she's standing there crying. And Jimmy is sitting where they were sitting at the table. And Jimmy looks relieved. And in that moment, I just feel happy for him. I'm happy for Jimmy for standing up for himself. And I'm happy that he is free from this awful engagement with this really damaged woman. And these two people do not need to be together. I hope. It's been like a year. I think this season 6 was filmed in March 2023, sorry. And so it's been one full year. And so I hope that Chelsea, I see people online, she's on TikTok. She's like, can you guys stop sending me death threats? Sending her death threats is insanity. Like, something is really wrong with you if you're going online sending death threats to people that you watch on a reality TV show. That's excessive, insane, and just not okay. And so I would never go to her page or, go send her any hate, because I know she's getting a lot of it, and I'm not going to pile on because that's just bullying. But I will say that I'm grateful to Jimmy and Chelsea because they brought a lot of drama. They entertained us. That's what we should do. We should be thanking Chelsea for entertaining us and for giving me something to make a podcast about. And so, yes, she is loony, but she doesn't deserve death threats and crazy people coming on her social media pages saying the most vile, disgusting, despicable things to her. Sometimes the fans, they just go too far and they just get too passionate. Like, ma'am, this is a produced reality show. We should all by now know. It's been 20 years since Survivor. We should all know what that means. Actually, it's been 24 years since Survivor debuted in 2000. And so we all know that it's reality with quotation marks. It's produced, they set up scenes, and so we should be thankful for the entertainment and stop sending Chelsea death threats. Yes, she's nuts. She doesn't deserve death threats. You goddamn crazy people. So that's the end of Chelsea and Jimmy. So now we are going to our last couple, AD and Clay. And all I have to say is, Lord have mercy. I want to go back to the Bachelor and Bachelorette parties. So when this episode began, Johnny and Clay were at a bachelor party with their friends, and Amy and AD were at a bachelorette party with their friends. And Amy and AD, Amy, Amber, AD, too many A's. And then there's a bunch of J's, Johnny, Jimmy, Jeremy, oh my God. But Amy and AD were talking, and Amy said her and Johnny hadn't had sex yet. And the way AD responded to me was very immature. She was like, oh, you fucking that man. She was saying it in her confessional. I just found that very immature because she's 32. She's not 22. or 18 or 19 or something like that. She's a 32-year-old grown-ass woman. And she's just like AD. She has a fun personality. I like her a lot, but she is a tad immature to me and a little too focused on sex. I felt in that moment the difference between Amy and AD and their journeys throughout the entire season. I feel like Amy is more focused on finding love, whereas AD was just more concerned about having fun. And, you need to have fun in life. And I know she wants to have fun in her relationship. But, there's just something missing to me. She's just a little bit immature to me. But then we go back to the bachelor party, and Clay is talking to one of his friends. And he's telling him all the things he loves about AD. And it's all me, 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 me. Or all superficial things like the sex is good. Or she fits into my world. She's willing to fight for him and to keep the relationship going. And he said he's a lot. Even he's a lot to his friends. So not only is he difficult in relationships, he's difficult for his homies too. Which we all know someone saying I'm a lot basically means they're an asshole. And he's telling AD he's going to put her through a bunch of bullshit. Which is just typical black struggle love, which needs to die. He couldn't come up with anything descriptive to describe why he loves AD. She's kind, she's heartwarming, she loves her family, she loves God. He couldn't do any of that. It was all pertaining to him and what she could do for him and how she could help him and how the sex was good. And I've never bought what Clay was selling. When they were in the pods and he was quoting the Bible, as a Christian myself, you quoting the Bible does not impress me. You should live your life according to the Bible. I don't need you to live another way where you're cheating on your wife, but then you're over here quoting scripture to her mother to try to impress her, because it's not impressive. It just makes you look like a hypocrite. And you know who else could quote the Bible word for word, backward and forward? Satan. So you quoting scripture is not impressing me. I need you to live your life that way and show me with your actions. So we finally get to Clay and AD's wedding day. AD arrives at the venue with her sisters and her nieces, and her sister asks her, what does she love about Clay? And she says that she loves that he's real, raw, he's authentic, she can be herself with him, and that he's fine and chocolate. And that fine and chocolate part was not necessary, because this is where AD is just so unserious. Like, ma'am, that fine and chocolate ain't gonna do nothing but get you heartbroken. We don't need to hear about that. It don't mean shit. And then Clay shows up to the venue with his brothers and his friends, and they make a toast. And then we see AD's mother, Jacqueline. I love her mother so much. Jacqueline comes in. She tells AD that she met with Clay's mother, Rita, and that, they got along like two peas in a pod. And AD's sister asks her, does she think Clay would make a good father and a good husband? And AD says yes, because he does the most important things that she looks for in a husband and a father, and that's protect and provide. I haven't seen Clay protect and provide anything. All we've seen is him talk about how he's scared he's going to cheat like his daddy. So apparently this is a private conversation about him providing for her or for their family, which is really nice. Okay, but I haven't seen it. Then Clay brother asks him, is he ready for marriage? And he says yes. He says he's happy at the man he's become through this process, which is nice. I talk about how Clay doesn't deserve AD, but it's not that I don't like Clay, because I like Clay. Clay, he seems like a good enough guy, but it's obvious to me he's not ready for marriage. And so it's like, why are you here? If you're not ready for marriage, why are you on Love is Blind? And that's the part about him that annoys me, because it's so clear to me. It was clear to me in the pods. So I don't want to make it seem like I don't like Clay, because I do like Clay. I'm sure he's a cool dude. He's a hard worker, and he's able to talk about his flaws in a way that a lot of people aren't. So I just want to make that clear that I don't dislike Clay. I just don't want him to be with AD, because it's clear to me that he's not ready for marriage, and he probably needs another 5 years before he'll be ready. And then we go to AD and her mother. Her mother gives her great grandmother's jade necklace. I love little touching moments like this, little family heirlooms from a century ago. The necklace was really beautiful. And then we meet the infamous Trevor. Trevor as in Clay's father, as in the crazy man who took Clay on his infidelity road trips. Yes, we meet him. He shows up. Clay's like, I'm kind of surprised to see you. He didn't know if he was going to see him that day, if his dad was going to show up. But Trevor helps Clay in his tux. And you can really see why Clay is the way that he is. Trevor has that hustler, fast talking, think he's telling you something, but it's really nonsense kind of vibe to him. And then he tells us a story about how Clay beat him in track and field and how Trevor qualified for, I don't know, Junior Olympics or something. But he had to get his life story in there. And like, Trevor, no one wants to hear your life story. When I look at him, all I see is him cheating on Clay's mother. Like, I don't care about you being good in track and field. Then Trevor tells us that he had no father of his own. His father was barely there. He didn't have a role model to look up to. He's making sure we know the reason why he is the way he is, or the reason why he's excusing his bad behavior, which is exactly what he's doing. Like people say, you are not responsible for your childhood trauma, but you are responsible as an adult to heal your trauma. So you can't use your lack of having a father as a reason to be a shitty father to your kids, because actually you should use that as fuel to be a better father than you had, because you know how hurtful it is when your dad disappoints you. So you should want to make sure that you don't do that to your own kids. So him telling us that he didn't have a role model of his own and he's damn near 70 years old. Like, okay, Trevor, you know what? That's not okay. We all got the same sad story, and that's not an excuse. Sorry, it isn't. That is not an excuse for you cheating on his mother for 24 years and for dragging your son on infidelity road trips, because that is abuse. And that really screwed Clay up, because that's all he talked about the entire season is his father's infidelity. Like, it's ingrained in him. And he thinks it's ingrained in him so deep. Clay thinks it's hereditary. Then Clay says something about the gray area of marriage. And he tells his dad he feels at peace. And then his dad comes up with a nonsense riddle, like a rap. And I'm like, okay, Trevor. Okay. And then Trevor leaves. And then we see AD in her wedding dress. She looks absolutely beautiful. I love her hair. Her lashes are still too much, but she just looks really pretty. And she's wearing a pearl necklace that Clay gave her. And her mother encourages her, just tells her, go out there, baby, and go out there and fly. And then we see Clay with his mother, Rita, and she tells him that she's there for him no matter what. And she's wearing his grandmother's ring. Grandma is there in spirit. Then we see AD walk down the aisle by herself. I hated seeing her walk down the aisle by herself. That was a choice. I'm sure she could have had, an uncle or someone do it for her. But as a Black girl who didn't have a father, I felt for her in that moment. I hated that she was alone walking down the aisle, but she looked beautiful no matter what. But when she got up to the altar, the first thing Clay says is, okay, body. Remember I said Johnny, when he saw Amy, when she got to the altar, he says, of course you look beautiful. And Clay made it about her body. You know why? Because like I said 2 podcasts ago, her body is what he liked about her. And her body is the only thing he liked about her. That's why he freaked out in the Dominican Republic when she talked about what happens if she gets pregnant and she gets out of shape. And he's like, oh no, I would never let you get out of shape. And his sole focus was always on her body. And it's unfortunate. And the reason why I knew these 2 were doomed. But nonetheless, they go up there, they say their vows. The preacher asks AD first, do you take Clay to be your lawfully wedded husband? And AD says yes. And then he asks Clay, and he starts off with the excuses and saying that it would be irresponsible of him to say yes, especially when he has a lot of work to do. And he says no, he can't marry her. And she's standing there looking stunned. And she's like, what the fuck, Clay? And he's like, what? Why the timeline? Why is it so important? And she's like, don't do that. Don't do that. Then she turns around to her mom and just like signals to her. And her mom says, we're good. And Jacqueline and all her 80 sisters and her nieces, all her wedding party, they all get up together. And AD leads them out. And she walks down the aisle and they walk behind her. And everybody is standing there looking. AD hugs Clay's mom, Rita, first. And Rita says, you're beautiful. She kind of like apologizes for her son. And then AD and her mom and sisters, they all walk out of the venue. And when they get out of earshot, AD says, what the fuck? I can't believe he wasted my time. They go back inside the area where they were getting dressed before the wedding. And she tells her mom she needs a moment. Her sisters and her mom, they're all trying to comfort her. And she's sitting there and she's crying. And she's like, I'm so confused. I don't know why AD is confused. I just don't understand why she's confused. Because Clay has been begging her to end this. Clay was not ever going to marry her. I mean, even from episode 1 when they were in the pods, just the way he talked, I'm like, this is not happening. He is not going to marry this girl. And I just don't understand, like, in the real, like, if it's so obvious through my TV screen, why wasn't it obvious in real life to her? She just saw what she wanted to see. That happens. Of course, everybody has been there. But I just think this situation is just so unfortunate. And she's genuinely hurt and confused and actually thought this man was going to marry her. And it's like, sweetie, no, he was never going to marry you. Oh, it just sucks. Then we see Clay mother telling him that, it's okay that, you don't force an I do because you'll end up making a huge mistake. And she's just telling him, he did the right thing, basically. And Clay did do the right thing. AD doesn't see it in the moment, but Clay, that was a gift for her to actually find her real person, the person she's supposed to be with, because it's not Clay. And that was a blessing. And she doesn't see it yet. I'm sure she sees it now. But Clay's mother is right. He did do the right thing. Don't get married, especially if you're not sure. And the thing about Clay is being on this show, because he was never going to marry anyone. And so it's like, what the fuck are you doing here on Love is Blind? Then we see Trevor, Clay's dad, and he tells him he's proud of him. And Clay said that he and AD had a great relationship, but she was not the person that he wanted to marry. And then Clay asked his father, should he go in there and talk to AD? And his dad said yes, because he doesn't want to appear indifferent. Like, it's all about a show, about what other people think. Like, you don't want to appear indifferent, even if you are. You just don't want to appear that way, which I don't like that. Like, go and talk to her because you care about her, because you claim you love her. Go and check on her, not because you don't want to appear indifferent. Then we see Clay talking to his parents, saying that, marriage is a unifying thing. It's a business decision, a financial decision, and that he doesn't understand AD's finances. I don't know what that means, because AD also said, he's a provider and a protector. And he's saying that he doesn't understand her finances. She works at a club and is a real estate agent. So I am confused about that. I don't have enough info to even talk about that. But he says that her finances is confusing to him. And he said he asked himself, am I her husband? No. Am I deeply in love? No. So he said that was the right thing to do. Then he goes in there where AD is and tells her that it was a game time decision, meaning it came down to the wire. He really wasn't decided until he actually had to give an answer, which I don't believe at all. He was never going to marry her, especially after they met. But he's telling her that it was a game time decision. He's trying to comfort her, but he's comforting her with a lie and coddling her. And he's like, I'm not rejecting you. They hug, they kiss, they say, I love you to each other. And it's just, Lord, he's like, do you think I'm leaving? And she's like, I don't know. He says, you know what, AD, I'm going to put in the therapy for us. And then AD rolls her eyes. And then we go to my favorite part of the episode. It's Clay's parents, his mom Rita and his dad Trevor. And Rita tells Trevor that Clay struggles with the overall concept of marriage. He doesn't know if marriage is a real thing or if marriage is something that you get into and you just cheat and deceive people. Because of the example that Trevor set for him, taking him on infidelity road trips. And his mom is telling him he struggles with that. And she said, Clay told her, Mom, you stayed, but I saw things that I should have never seen. And so his mom finally tells his father that she found new information. Like, she knew about him cheating, but she didn't know that he was taking Clay on road trips with him to cheat. Like, she didn't know he was taking her damn son to do this, because that's abuse. This has screwed Clay up. And she said that she forgives him, but that new information pissed her off. Then Trevor uses the same excuse. I didn't have a role model. My dad wasn't there for me. And Rita says, you know what? I forgive you. But yes, we come from broken families, but that doesn't mean we have to keep spreading this brokenness to our children. This part for me as an African American was really nice to hear. It was nice to see two 60-something Black people talk about the brokenness of the Black family and the tradition of it. This is something that started on the plantation. When a slave woman would have a baby, it wasn't her child because she wasn't a human being. She was property. So the baby would be the property of the master, and the master would sell the baby off, or people would be sold at auctions. Like, they would sell human beings at auction. So that foundation of family, we just didn't have it there as African Americans. And I'm specifically talking about African American ethnic groups, because I can't speak for other Black ethnic groups. But yes, as African Americans, that generational curses, the brokenness of the family is a very real thing. And it's so nice to see them talk about it, because that's the only way we're going to end the curses, end the brokenness, is to talk about it publicly and to actually put action into stopping it. I like to use LeBron James as an example. You know, his mother had him when she was 15, and his father just didn't take responsibility for him. So when he became LeBron James that we know, he said that he used that, his disappointment of his father not being there for him, he used that as fuel to become a good father to his kids. And that's how you break a curse. You do it just like that. You use it as fuel. You don't use it as an excuse. Well, my daddy wasn't there for me, but this has been going on for so long, and everybody has been allowed to use the same excuse, and it's just bullshit. Stop the damn curse. End the curse. Don't do what your father did, because you know how much it hurt when your dad disappointed you. And I just use LeBron James as an example because everybody knows who LeBron James is. But then Trevor tells Rita, he told Clay to find a woman like his mother. And Rita said, well, you found me, but you weren't good to me. And she said what she said, and she walked away. And Trevor just standing there looking like an idiot. He hasn't learned anything. His words mean nothing. He's a liar and a cheater. And he's just the same person. And he's emotional, but I don't see any tears. I don't trust him. And he really did a number on his family. He really damaged Clay. And he's just standing there like a moron. Then we go back to AD and Clay is gaslighting AD, telling her, I learned a lot through this. And AD says she feels like a sacrificial lamb, like he used her to become a better person. And AD says she has a bad pattern of catering to men and them not choosing her. And, it's time for her to grow up. She really needs to grow up. She needs to figure out a way to work on herself, because if this is a pattern, then she's repeating the same pattern. So now she's just insane at this point, because she hasn't learned from it, because she keeps doing it. And she's a good-hearted person, and she deserves better. And I want her to figure this out and get better for herself. And, she says she can't drag, force, and she won't beg Clay. And that she was done. And Clay walks away, and AD is sitting there crying in her wedding dress. And that's how it ends. And that was a really, really well done piece of reality TV. This was the finale episode, but we still have one more episode next week. We have the reunion, which I will be back to talk about that. And then I'll wrap up the season 6 of Love is Blind. But thank you guys for listening to my podcast. If you guys want to support me, you can click on one of the links in our bio on our Instagram page. I really appreciate it. We have 169 listeners or something like that, which I know is not a lot in the grand scheme of podcasts, but it's a lot to me. And I appreciate every single one of you. I appreciate all your listenings. Looking at the analytics, I'm like, oh my God, people are listening to my podcast, even if it's only 169. I love that number. I love every single one of you. Thank you so much. You can support our podcast, like I said, by clicking on one of the links, because it's just me and my iPhone. And, it could be better. The quality of the podcast could be so much better if I had better equipment. So if you guys want to support me, you can do that. And thank you guys for listening. I'll see you tomorrow with part 2 of the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills reunion. Bye, guys.